And we are officially live. This is good. Connection looks stable. That's always good news, because sometimes I have like a freak out when I'm in the mountains and I'm like, I wonder if this is going to work or not. But it's working. And right, I got the email to confirm we are live. So I'm going to have a quick check, the little sanity check on LinkedIn that people can see us. I'm sure they can, but just to double check. I go to my profile and yep, we are live.
Oh, yes, Leanne is live. Great.
The little sanity check on LinkedIn.
Okay, I'm not going to follow on my phone.
No, because it distracts you, or I should say rather, it shows you like how many people are there potentially, but then at the same time, it doesn't categorize in anybody who might be at on YouTube or whatever. But we can ask people to say hi, feel free, don't be shy. We're super excited. Today is really a massively exciting day. It's absolutely a culmination of all of your hard work, Jessica. So we have to talk about it loud and proud, calls to action, what people can do to get involved, the story. So there's so much to cover today. We'll try our best to keep it relatively concise, but chances are that won't happen. But we don't mind. We know how it is already. We try our best, but we can't make any promises. So I know it's only been 2 minutes, but I still think we can kind of kick off and people can come and say hi. We can leave the banner up at least for the first 5 minutes, and then everyone can say hi as and when they feel like it. So anybody who doesn't know me, I am Leanne Meyer. You can tell from my name, but still, I'm Leanne Meyer, and I'm the managing director of LM Consulting, and we specialize in gender equality in business, basically looking at how companies can increase their gender representation in senior management and also in leadership, but making sure that Black women aren't left behind. Hi, Laura, nice to see you. People kind of tend to ask, what business am I in? But I'm in the business of impact, because fundamentally gender equality is social justice. It is a right for all people. And in that vein, and all the things that I stand for, I couldn't have been more happy to become involved with XOCO Unlimited, with Jessica, and actually be able to kind of contribute to something that has global and wider impact, as most of you have seen. Today's called XOCO Unlimited, Driving Global Impact Through Empowering Young Women. So, Jessica, I will hand over to you, as in this particular constellation, as the founder of XOCO Unlimited. That's the hat you're wearing today, but still let everybody know like a little bit about yourself, what you do, who you are, and how you came up with the idea and the journey of XOCO and how we got to today.
Perfect. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me, Leanne. I'm really excited to have this live session with you today and to be on your show again, this time with XOCO. And as you mentioned, I'm wearing a lot of different hats. So in a nutshell, I'm an impact investor focusing on emerging markets. And I have been in this field for about 12 years. So started out living and working in different countries in Latin America and Africa. I spent also some time in Asia. And currently also the chair of the 2X Challenge, which is a global investor-led initiative at the forefront of gender lens investing, really aiming to bring the broad spectrum of investors together to shift more capital towards gender equality and women's empowerment. And kind of as part of this work, I'm on the one hand very close to investment practice, and on the other hand also very close to grassroots organizations, to women's movements around the world, and the broader kind of social impact space. And when the pandemic hit, it was just really shocking to see how it has rolled back the progress made on gender equality and equality more broadly over the past decades, really. I mean, within a few months, you could literally see how all of that is just falling apart. And so I founded XOCO kind of as a more innovative and fast and agile way of responding to it, with a particular focus on adolescent girls who are often paying the price of the crisis. But I think this is sometimes not visible to a lot of people. And so we really wanted to place a spotlight on that and to come up with an innovative solution.
No, and that's, I mean, as usual, you say a lot of things that are really crucial, but the pandemic really has broadened the already existing gap of inequality that we see. And I think you and I discussed this before, which is, sometimes we focus in many cases on a broader level about, on poverty. That's what we think about. We think about countries emerging, like, I don't really like the phrase emerging markets, but we'll use it anyway. Countries that don't necessarily have as much, people who don't necessarily have as much disposable income. And we think of that only in relation to being able to provide food for themselves, to being able to kind of have more than life's necessities in comparison to how we live. The not thinking about their needs so much, but about what the things they may want. And one of the things that you really brought to my mind and into focus for me was the fact that the pandemic has also really heightened the vulnerability of a lot of young girls who through poverty are forced to make decisions that at the time, or when you sit within our kind of space, it seems logical. It seems logical that sex trafficking is something that you wouldn't ever consider. It seems logical that there's loads of things that you wouldn't do. But when faced with poverty, that doesn't make it as much of it seems like it seems like a viable proposition to kind of help you get out of a bad situation, to help you be able to feed yourself and all these sorts of things. And that was one of the kind of big takeaways for me, and what the work you're doing with XOCO is that you're really putting that in focus to say, look, we can think about so many other points. And this is kind of my principle in general. We can focus on so many issues that are going wrong in the world, but there is this particular one, which is, with the pandemic, it has further exacerbated the vulnerability of these girls. They're already vulnerable, but now through the economic hardships that the countries are facing, through the lack of employment, all these other things, it's really pushing them to a place where you're coming up with an innovative solution to almost, it's actually, as they call them, interventions. It is a form of an intervention that with XOCO, you're really being able to change the path on which they stand. You really be able to reroute it. And for me, I find that to be the largest impact of all, that you're kind of giving them a chance for a life and a world that they potentially never even saw before.
Yeah, and I think that's also something that was really important for us when we came up with our module. So it was really in collaboration. It was kind of this co-creation process with local grassroots organizations who are very, very close to the target group, as well as with like young women and girls from these communities themselves. And then also kind of to dream bigger and to look beyond kind of the conventional solutions, right? Because often in the space, what we have come up with is like low-skilled alternatives, or like some, kind of fast skills development programs. But I mean, you're talking about adolescent girls who still have their entire life ahead of them. And if you just, because of this immediate crisis, but if you just focus on, I don't know, developing skills that are immediate, but that kind of set them on a path that keeps them in these informal, badly paid jobs, that's not a viable solution. And so we were like, why shouldn't these girls, with all their talent, their lived experience, their motivation, like be able to leapfrog to digital jobs of the future, not just any kind of jobs, but really the most exciting jobs of the future.
Right. And it's a perfectly valid point. Like, why shouldn't we think about being able to offer them social mobility and think about it on a global scale? Because I think not just in, this particular group of vulnerability, but I think this is a concept that has really, when I say exploded, has come to the forefront of most people's minds, is that with a pandemic, everything has gone global in many ways. Companies are looking for remote workers, and as long as their person can deliver on the job, it doesn't matter if the job's technically based in the US, but you're sitting in Germany or wherever else, And I think this global outlook, this outlook that you're providing them with a mobility that doesn't confine them and still keep them in a box of still perpetuating essentially the same cycle that they were already in, but you're saying to them, dare to be different. And we're going to not only help you dare to be different, we're going to help you, provide you with those tools. We're going to work with grassroots organizations to make sure we understand that what we're catering to is actually the needs you have, as opposed to us saying, this is what we think you should do. We're showing you, hey, this is the pipe, this is how it works. We're going to bring you through the process. And we are also showing you where you can land with these skills, because, sometimes with training programs or development. You know, people, you see that within the corporate world, right? They have leadership development programs, and these women are developed, but to go where? You know, after they've done the program, it's a tick box, but there's no job for them. There's no position for them. They're not being able to readily use the skills that they're being given. It's just a nice to have. I've done this development program. And I think this is what I like about what you're doing, is you're helping them really be targeted. It's future forward, but you're also in the meantime providing them with a structure to help them succeed. And that was a really powerful part for me as to how you're doing it and why you're doing it.
Yeah, and what you just mentioned, I think that's the challenge of any empowerment program, right? Or like any skills development program, to then really also achieve kind of to bridge this gap from skills development to actual jobs and to quality jobs. So I think that will also be, of course, a challenge for us with our program. But the way we're tackling it is to bring on the companies very early on. So they are actually part of shaping the content, the curriculum, their guest lecturers at our academy. And so they basically already know our talent pipeline and help develop it, so that they are also much more likely to then offer job opportunities afterwards.
Right. Because you're giving them that head start, you're giving them that networking chance, which says, you know, instead of trying to guess what the companies want and having to compete with 1,000 other people, the companies are helping shape you into what they want whilst giving you transferable skills, and you're giving them opportunity. So it's not as though they have to fight and think this is the world of the unknown, but through the work you do in your other life, you're also being amazing in opening your network to them so that they can come into contact with people that they would otherwise never come into contact with. But you're also bridging that gap. You're the conduit, or, you know, everybody that's working on this project with you bridges that gap to say, well, in normal life, I wouldn't come in contact with any of these ladies, but through you and what you're doing, that's the other opportunity that comes out of it. So it's 2021. I coined this at the very beginning of the year of impact. It's a year of impact for me. You've been an impact investor for a long time, so you know your life's always been about that. But what's the goal for XOCO Unlimited this year?
So this year, today is actually a very special day for us, that we've been working for a long time. And today we're launching our Indiegogo campaign, which will basically, you know, today is the goal for 2021. And the purpose of the Indiegogo campaign is to fundraise for our pilots. So we're planning to have at least 2, ideally 3 parallel pilots this year, which will help us to reach basically proof of concept phase, right? So we'll implement our program. We have a Latin America pilot that really focuses on on girls who are currently in the most challenging situations. So there we have a very holistic empowerment and digital education program. And then in parallel, we're running another global pilot, which focuses on adolescent girls across the global south, and where we take a bit more of a prevention-oriented approach. So these girls are slightly younger, they're in high school, and they join us initially for a summer school and then for 3-month sprints, where we basically have like a holistic empowerment program. We teach them digital skills, but it's a very horizontal approach. So it's really kind of accompanying them on this journey as they go through high school and make key decisions for the future, like what specialization should I choose? And we all know that social norms usually nudge girls, you know, not to go into STEM, but to go into a different direction. So we want to make sure they have the possibility to take an informed decision. And then we accompany them like on this pathway from finishing high school, making decisions about college or jobs or both, and so on. And then afterwards, they will have the specialization. So for us, in a nutshell, 2020 is the year of our pilots. We're super excited about it. And that's why we really hope to get like a big boost with our Indiegogo campaign and to get the global community behind this project.
No, that's an amazing goal. And I think, you know, I'm super excited for the launch. I think this is going to be amazing. I mean, for anyone who's watching, I'm going to share this link now, but I will share it afterwards, which is to kind of find out more about the Indiegogo campaign and to see how this is really going to be done, like what is going to be done with these resources, how are we going to be empowering girls, where, like, what does this look like? And Jessica's put together a really amazing video campaign. I'm going to tell you guys the truth, I'm part of it too. You'll see this face in there, but for all of 2 seconds, but I'm there. And it's a really, really exciting day. It's a really, really exciting point, because when you think about empowerment and you think about gender equality, it doesn't just start in the workplace. It starts before. It starts a long, long time before that. And there's so much that happens within, a woman's life in terms of being primed for what should be done by women. When you kind of overlay that in coming from places where you don't necessarily have opportunity to a lesser extent than in, let's say, Western Europe, for example, this becomes even more powerful. So the fact that, like Jessica, you're rallying the global troops to get behind this, because these pilots are really, really important. But it's not just important for being like successful today. It's also important going forward, because, a pilot is only ever a precursor of the bigger plan. And it's also an indicator. But what we hope for is that the reception to this is going to be so big that people understand how important it is to empower vulnerable young women just as much as it is to empower women who already have opportunity, because that's the key difference. I also look to make the workplace better for women, and in particular Black women, but that is in essence a privilege part, because we all work, we all exist in a particular bubble, but this goes far beyond that, and it's really about creating opportunity for those who don't have it, which is something that Jessica and I both feel very, very, just a little bit, feel very, very strongly about. And this is why it's kind of so exciting for us to be launching today, going live. And, it's exciting for me to be part of this project and to see where it's going. And we hope that everyone else sees the urgency, because, we're thinking right now about, people are thinking about ESG and social impact and social justice. This feeds in, this is part of all of it. This is part of all of it. It's not just in isolation. It's not just in the corporate world. It's not just focusing on climate change. It's focusing on the whole picture. And whilst we can't all focus on everything, there's enough room for all of us to kind of find our niche and really help there, I think. Well, actually, I know. You're contemplating, Jessica.
No, absolutely. And I think, the point you make, I think there's also an important bridge between the two, because in our, what we call the Global Education Accelerator program for these adolescent girls and young women, a very important component of this program is our mentoring program, where we bring in role models. And those are exactly, the kind of role models that you are working with. So I think actually there are a lot of connections and synergies that we can also leverage with the kind of work that you're doing.
Correct. And that this is what we love, because aside from directly for us talking about XOCO, I think one of the most powerful things, and you've probably experienced this a lot more because you've been in the impact space for a longer time than I have, but you find that as you move on this journey, you come into contact with more people who are like-minded, who want to make those changes. And then it does open the door to conversations, collaborations, partnerships, synergies, to really find new ways, innovative ways to really be able to leverage what we know, leverage who we are, and, leverage our skills. And one of the things that I really liked is what you said at the very beginning, is you thought about how you could empower these young girls and how to empower them. The first step possibly is, let's find them a job, let's find them a source of income. But actually, the way you've kind of put that through the lens of your experience, you already know that if you do that, it's tantamount to kind of partial success, but it doesn't solve the root problem, and it doesn't guarantee that within the next 3 years, should they be should they be disadvantaged by any economic issues within the country, that they don't fall into the position that they were in before. But the fall is even harder because they've experienced something different, meaning they're more likely to go into these into trafficking, into all these kind of I'm going to call them industries, because that's what they are, but go into all these industries that are still very dangerous for them. And this is why I like the way you kind of said, it has to be innovative, it has to be forward thinking, because I think just generally right now, anybody who's in the business of providing a solution, be it from a foundation perspective or from a corporate perspective, we can't use the same solutions that we've always used. It has to be something new. It has to be something forward thinking for it to have the longevity to reflect the times that we're living in.
Yeah, and I think especially when you're working with youth, this is really important, because I think you can easily fall into the trap of, I don't know if, like, I always compare this to this path dependency, that we know from other fields. I mean, maybe it's not exactly the right terminology for this, but I think it's an analogy, because like once you go into a certain path, it kind of shapes your future. And of course, going into a low-skilled alternative that's not dangerous, etc., is better than being in the worst kind of exploitation. But still, I mean, we still didn't want to go into that path, but really think bigger and think about the jobs of the future and say, actually, why do the current rules of the game say that only people who studied at the best college abroad have access to the digital jobs of the future? I mean, it's not rocket science, right? And even if it was, I mean, why shouldn't we be able to bring in practitioners and like the world's brightest people who are working in these sectors and just empower the girls to do these kind of jobs?
Right. And I think the other point is that you're not, when I say you're not doing the girls a favor, what I mean by it is you're actually doing the companies a favor, the corporates of the future a favor, because the reality is that they're missing out on the talent. They're missing out on talent that they've never, the untapped talent. We know that groupthink gets us to a certain point, but after that, to really be innovative, productive, agile, all those things, you need people who have different ways of thinking. And I think that's the point where we have got to, in general. It's kind of groupthink that as an individual, you think, if I haven't gone to these schools, I won't be able to fit in here. But then, as like individually we think it, companies think it, but why should it be like that? And I think part of what you're doing is really, when I say brave, I don't mean it in a patronizing way, but I mean, you're challenging the system to say, well, why does it have to still stay like that? Why does it have to still be like that you only take people from this school, this country, as long as they're, we're not saying they don't have to have any qualifications, but as long as their language proficiencies match the country that they're going to, and they show potential as in they can do the same tests, why should it be any other way? And I think the way that you're doing it is also the fact that it's in conjunction with companies means that they are open to this change, but they've also recognized, without wanting to necessarily admit it, that what they're doing so far isn't always the best idea. And I think there are a lot of companies who know this, but they're not necessarily aware or they don't necessarily know how to start on the path. And this is kind of like a good opportunity and a good way to get into it, because they can say, well, this is what we expect and this is what we would like. But they will get to know these girls as girls, as opposed to somebody on a piece of paper.
Yeah, and it's partially, we're drawing on the experience that some of us have made with the ProCredit Regional Academy. So like many years ago, different in Latin America, I was part of the ProCredit group, and we had a young bankers program, which was basically a trainee program, right? And it was really interesting. Like at some point we started opening it up to different kind of people who study different careers at university, not just your typical business and finance profile, but literally anything. And then we also brought on talent who hadn't studied at college or university. So, who were just working because they couldn't afford to study. And we brought them in as well. And of course, it's initially challenging to have people with different backgrounds and starting points. But we realized that actually those who didn't have the typical, kind of the typical CV, or who didn't come from the allied universities, they were so motivated, and they really made such a big contribution and had an amazing career path in the company because we gave them a shot and because we had this trainee program. And so that is something that inspired many of us, and we're bringing that experience into XOCO now.
Right. challenging challenging assumptions and thinking outside of the box, right? Thinking outside of the box doesn't mean, and this is something that you kind of, especially as a woman, especially as a Black woman, you kind of tire of hearing the phrase, when people talk about hiring candidates from different backgrounds, they interminably start with, we don't want to lower our standards. It's got nothing to do with it. There's nothing about lowering standards. It's accepting that in the beginning there will be a rub. There will be differences because people have different outlooks, but it doesn't mean that once you've gotten over the initial teething problems that it can't be successful. And I like the fact that you're kind of taking that kind of spirit on board, but also using it with the companies that you're working with, because that shows that they're willing to also do the same. Let's see. The phrase diamond in the rough exists for a reason. You might not recognize it at the beginning, but with cutting, polishing, and all this other stuff, you have something beautiful and something of high value. And it's not just about buying a freshly cut diamond that's there to present. And this is the part about it. You're taking what is essentially a hard part of the process, getting people kind of trained, getting people acclimatized to the structure of working life, digital life, all this kind of stuff. And you're really helping prime them for success. And this is what I like about what you're doing. And this is why I'm fully behind it. And it's super exciting that today's the launch, because it's the start of, XOCO's global impact today. I wish I knew what the date was. Like, this is my own problem. It's Monday, the 19th of April. Sorry, I've got it now. Monday, the 19th of April, day one, XOCO Unlimited Global Impact Drive. And we've just got to keep talking about it and, making sure that people hear the story, why you did it, why you're doing it, what the plan is, how it's going forward, because it's an important message. And it feeds into everything that every company is trying to achieve on a broader basis, or any company that's trying to change the world in a positive way. It's part of that. Like, okay, of course there are companies that are only still in it for the money, and they're behind right now, but they will ultimately get left behind. We know that. But it's we have to kind of keep talking about it, keep making sure people understand the concept of it, and how you are also really, in wearing so many hats, how you're maximizing and leveraging who you are to do it. Because all of those come together, and everything comes with a lot of work. There's a lot to do, but the fact that your dedication is pushing it through to make sure these girls have an opportunity is something that we kind of have to all say, well, you know what, I'm glad to be part of it, because you put work in, but you will see it just by impacting the lives of these young girls.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to have you on board, Leanne, and our global team members who are all wearing so many different hats. But that is what makes it so exciting, right? Because we're breaking silos, we're all contributing our unique perspectives and networks and really everything that that's kind of a part of us to contribute to the solution. And I think this is also really the future of collaboration, of innovation, and solving these global social challenges by coming together and really thinking out of the box.
Agreed. And I'm, well, already, like, I'm super happy to also be on board, and for us to really be able to sit down and come up with new ideas of how to empower different groups, but looking at that through our different standpoints as women, but also as professional women, and, looking at our experiences and kind of getting a good feel. And as you said, you've got the global team with age range differences, like the whole thing. And it really makes sure that as much as is possible, we kind of consider all parts of this to kind of really maximize the impact by using all of our skills. And everything that everybody's doing is complementary, and as you said, collaborative. So it's kind of taking complementary facets as opposed to taking everybody who wants to be in the limelight, everybody who wants to take the lead and be the face of, but actually understanding that to kind of be successful, it's also good and okay to take a back seat, because it doesn't mean you have less credit. It's all about pulling together for the goal, as opposed to being the face of, like, you're forced to be the face of it, which I know you'd rather hide sometimes, but it's it's all of us supporting you being out there, but at the same time, you know, using our platforms to talk about it, using our facilities to talk about it, to bring things to action, to leverage our networks, because ultimately the goal that we all share is the same. We want these young girls to have the opportunity to be essentially future-proofed career-wise, future-proofed financially, so that when you're looking, I mean, I call it the circle of money, but when you're looking at this circle of money, these girls start to earn enough money so that they can save. Once they start to save, then they can invest, and then they're not, you know, they're not just contributing to themselves, but it's contributing to their community. It has a broader, wider impact. I mean, I'm posting about this today myself, but it's that thing about understanding that this isn't just about one person, it's about a community, it's about countries. And where did I watch this now? I don't remember, but it was talking about like the domino effect, and you know, you start the domino so small, but within, I don't, please, if anyone knows this, you can tell me how wrong I am, but it's like, if you took dominoes, if there were like 130 of them or something, it could knock over the Empire State Building, but that's with one starting being like this small. And I think that's the multiplier of impact. That is, we just want to be the starting domino that starts everything, the chain in motion, so that eventually this has a broader impact than just these girls.
Yeah, and there are so many really interesting studies on the ripple effects of investing in women and girls. And as you just mentioned, like one really interesting statistic, for example, is that women and girls, especially in the global south, reinvest 90% of every dollar that they earn. They reinvest it into their family, their community, and health, education, etc. So it's really interesting to see those multiplier effects. And you know how, like, with that one investment, investing in one woman or one girl, you actually achieve really massive impact over the years.
Right. And I was thinking, you know, like I read an article, excuse me, I know this is, excuse me, I know this feels like a slightly like when I say political, Black Panthers were viewed as being political, but at the time when you talk about the impact of community, like I learned a bit myself about the UK Black Panthers only recently, but at that time, the sense of community, because there wasn't funding from the government per se, this is how people were investing their money, their time into schools to educate kids, into Saturday schools. You know, that was also very popular, for example, within the Jamaican community in Britain, to provide Sunday school, Saturday school, Sunday school. Sunday schools were after church, but that also has an impact. It has an impact as to how you then perform in school. Your performance in school then also dictates, you know, how you then do if you choose to go to university. So when you're kind of thinking about the impact of these young girls and what they can do with that money, as you said, if they reinvest 90%, that 90% might be going to their communities. It might serve for women to pull together and start a Saturday school to kind of educate the next generation. We don't know, but what we do know is that impact and how they can choose to use this extra income and these connections and kind of building the next world will change not only their lives hugely, but their communities' lives, and also how their countries look. And I think we have to start understanding that it's more than just seats at the table. It's also how we can change society. And this is why, you know, I'm passionate about what XOCO Unlimited's doing. I'm so happy to be on board, because it really is about understanding how communities work, understanding how we can change them, but really understanding that a small step at the beginning can still lead, as you said, the ripple effect, the domino effect, can still lead to huge changes just by being part of that initial first step, especially when you've calculated the cost to a certain extent and understood that this is a meaningful step, as opposed to just saying, well, okay, well, what's the easy way out for this? It's, you've taken the time to really strategically plan this, to think, well, I want these girls to have the best. I'm going to think about how they deserve more, and how can I then implement that into a program to make sure that these women get the best possible access to the best possible edtech that's going around. And you know, that's why I'm passionate to be a part of what you're doing.
Great. Yeah, so, I really love how you frame the kind of the ripple effect of the impact. And I think on top of that, I mean, this year, you know, we're starting with the first 2 or 3 pilots. But once we have kind of demonstrated that the model works and how it works, and have kind of polished it further and co-develop more content with the girls, this can really be scaled, globally, and you can then scale it exponentially. So I think that's why this initial year is so important for us, to really show that it works, how it works, what is necessary, and then we can also make that knowledge and the model available to other grassroots organizations and really reach scale at a global level.
Right. And I think there would be so many. The one thing that I do know, and this is only through reading because I've not really been involved. I'm trying to think. No, I haven't really been involved in any grassroots organizations. But a lot of the time what you do read is that they lack structure. And that's not a problem, but it's because it's not their fault, I should say. It's because they're usually, fire extinguishing, kind of trying to extinguish fires one after another. And this could be a possible way for so many of them to have that structure that they're kind of looking for, and also that partner to really elevate and to really help what they're doing. And I think this is kind of like, putting XOCO aside for 2 seconds. This is why I always love talking to you, because it's really like what you're doing is the context or the backdrop for what I'm doing in the corporate space. It's about providing structure, context, understanding, creating impact to make sure that whatever we're doing isn't just about the individual, but has a broader impact, but also providing that structure so that, it's not just available to one company because you're thinking like this, but it's something that's globally available. And this is also why I appreciate and love the way you work, because it's thinking not just in small parts, but you do think globally, and that's really the way forward. So what should everybody know? I'm going to share where you can be found. So XOCO Unlimited can be found everywhere. Insta, XOCO Unlimited, Twitter at We for XOCO, LinkedIn, XOCO-Unlimited. Jessica can also be found everywhere. Insta, Twitter, LinkedIn. Please feel free to kind of get in touch. Please feel free. Today's conversation is a mixture talking about XOCO, how XOCO works, but also it's a moment for us to both share why we do what we do, why we're motivated, why Jessica, also put the hat on to be the founder of XOCO. It underscores many of the reasons why I'm involved with the project, as well as, why I have founded LM Consulting. So please feel free to always kind of reach out to us, send us messages, and we're here. We love to talk in as much as it allows time-wise. But yeah, thank you for kind of taking the time today to kind of listen to what is going on and the most exciting part of this launch. So I think that's all from me. Jessica, is it all from you?
Yes, I think that's all from me as well. We'll share the Indiegogo link again, where people can also find out about our exciting perks. And in particular, we're very excited about our Future of Impact Summit that we're organizing in October, bringing together impact-driven entrepreneurs, investors, ecosystem players, business networks, really everybody who's interested in social innovation, impact, and entrepreneurship. And this is kind of our thank you for those who are supporting our campaign, so that you do not only help us get, kickstart our XOCO pilots, but also get something of value to you in return. And we can further bring the global community together and explore opportunities for collaboration at the summit.
I am also very excited for that. So all I can say, guys, is watch this space. And thank you very much for your time today. Bye.